This is Women in Business. Welcome, I'm Fenley Foxen. But women face a range of issues in the workplace that tend to be different from men. Launched in January this year, the book Work Diva addresses some of the challenges the fair agenda encounters in the wicked world of business. It features gentle life lessons using a fun approach and focuses without patronizing or preaching on the typical obstacles and challenges women face as they grow their careers and their personal interests. To tell us more about being a diva rather than a doormat in the workplace is the author Meredith, also joining us from our bureau in Cape Town to give us some insight into the modern day workplace is industrial psychologist Rita Callaman. Ladies, welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Kim. According to a recent article that we read, the number of women placed in new positions are only 30%. Why is the figure so low still?
I'm not sure why the figure's so low. I know the Businesswomen Association of South Africa do a lot of research, and they've found that there's a steady increase in the number of women taking positions and more senior positions, which is encouraging. But globally, I think women don't get the senior jobs. I'm not sure in South Africa if it's specific to our the makeup, our demographics, if you like, of the different cultural groups. But I think women also undervalue themselves and they may be a little bit hesitant to go in and apply for the jobs.
Yeah. Rita, do you think women are considered to be very risky these days for employment purposes?
I don't think that they're necessarily risky. I think women are still choosing to follow the traditional role of being wife and mother. If you ask in an MBA class how many men would prefer their wives to work, you would find that the majority of them would indicate that they don't want their wives to work. So women still tend to, as Kim puts it, to lose their soul or give up their soul.
But Kim,
in the
don't you
process
think
of choosing to be married.
Yeah, but Kim, don't you think in the process of wanting to be married and kids, employers would rather appoint a male than a female?
Well, I think in terms of local labour law, they're not allowed to do that. But that aside, you know, if you know a woman's going to be off for an extended period because of maternity leave, or they're going to be challenges because the child is sick at nursery school, then maybe some people don't want a woman in a position, but women bring with them a different kind of commitment to their jobs. Often they're just so grateful for the job that they will put a lot more in than, I don't want to say than a man, because this isn't a male bashing exercise.
No.
But they really appreciate the investment that's made in them. So that, in my opinion, more than compensates maybe for some of the sacrifices a woman would have to make in looking after her children. And the woman does look after the kids. It's not usually the husband that runs to the nursery school.
Yeah. Well, Rita, what are some of the challenges that women still face in South African workplace?
I think in the first place, the whole issue of sharing the workload of taking care of a family and a job. The woman also needs a lot of support from her husband in order to be able to meet the requirements of a full-time job. And that is a very taxing challenge for any woman to cope with. As Kim has said, that you can't do both very well, or you can't be perfect at both, because then you are becoming a superwoman.
But has
so
it changed?
At this stage,
yeah, but has it changed from the
has
past
it
10
changed?
years? Yeah.
I think it has. I really do.
And what should be done, do you think, to address these issues that rise up in the workplace?
Well, I do think that women put too much pressure on themselves. You know, they're trying to be super mom and business star at the same time. And in my book, it's okay not to do both brilliantly. It's okay to choose. And I think that's the first step, is for women to acknowledge that they are human. But women today have more expectations of themselves. And I think a lot of the pressure they put on themselves, not necessarily in the work environment. So to be realistic about what they can do in the context of work versus looking after their children, their families, their homes, shopping, all these things we have to do.
Rita, what are the psychological dimensions in terms of power for a woman in the workplace versus a man in the workplace?
It depends on what you mean by power. I think what is more important is that the woman should have achievement motivation, and that she would want to excel in order to become a diva. She would have to really commit herself to acquiring the qualifications that would make it possible for her to obtain those senior positions, to do the work. And for her as a woman to succeed, she has to be really better than any man around. It's because there is still some stereotypes in the workplace. If there's a choice between a man and a woman and they're exactly the same, they bring the same qualities, the choice would be the man. Whereas if she's better than the man, she can be sure that she would get the job.
So you don't think there's
So she has to work much harder.
Yeah, so you don't think there's a power struggle between a man and a woman, though?
I don't think that there's a real power struggle. I think there are subtle issues that needs to be addressed. But in real terms, the issue is, do we as women want to achieve, and do we want to take on the challenge of a really demanding job? Because that is what is really important for us. Power is part of organizational politics. Everybody in organizations at the top levels do play power games. Women play them as well as men. I don't think there's that much of a difference.
I like the way Rita's cottoned on to the word diva, but I don't want to alarm our viewers when we mention diva. So you're going to take us through the 7 different types of divas that you've assessed.
Yeah, first of all, if we can, let's just step back to the word diva and how it came about. It just might be interesting for the viewers to understand. I run a series of programs in business, specifically in deal making. And the more I worked with business, not just South Africa, it's globally, the more I discovered women have specific challenges in the work environment that men don't necessarily face. And a lot of women said, let's have a program just for women. And I was quite apprehensive because I thought firstly, no male bashing, you know, that's not the objective. But yes, they do have challenges. So we went from Dealmaker, which is the series of courses I run, to Deal Diva because of the alliteration. And then when I published the book, the publisher said, well, what would you like to call it? And they liked Work Diva, and I thought, oops, diva can have negative connotations. But if you look into it, I mean, it's essentially the Italian word for goddess, and I quite like the concept of a woman viewing herself as a goddess, not behaving like a prima donna or a diva, but I think if you can just change the way you view yourself, and that's what the word diva is supposed to encourage somebody to do, is just to take a closer look at themselves and start talking to themselves in a different way. And that'll help. But in the work context, women bring different skills, but they also bring different baggage to what men bring. And I liked what Rita was saying. A lot of it's just stereotype, though, that we're not going to get rid of.
Yeah. In your book, you've mentioned there are 2 types of people in the world, a diva or a doormat. Take us through the difference.
All right, that wasn't my quote. That's Pablo Picasso. He was saying there are only 2 types of women, goddesses and doormats. And yeah, it's a little two-dimensional for me, and I don't have Rita's studies behind me, but I think that is essentially how you can see yourself. But I had a little fun with it, and I thought, let's do some typical behavioral profiling and look at how women behave. And it's based on the old research that came out of 1926 from Professor Marsden, which a lot of people are familiar with because they've done courses or their employers have made them do personality profiles. And based on that, I just developed a theme and looked at 8 different types of women in the workplace. But it's centered around 4 basic behavioral styles.
Yeah. Before we get into that, Rita, it can't just be a diva and a doormat in a workplace, because we know there are the 4 different personality groups as well, the amiables, the melancholics, etc. So can one divide a gender into just 2 kind of characters?
Definitely not. I think that the spirit of what is meant here is, in the first place, the women who really want to reach for the top positions in organizations. And a number of careers give women access to senior positions in the organization. But there's a full range of possibilities available to any woman, depending on the hand that she's been dealt with, including her cognitive abilities, her personality, her social circumstances, the opportunities that she had to study, to develop herself, education, all of those factors do play a role in where she is going to be at some stage in her career. Then, in addition to that, it's her sense of achievement motivation and her ability to drive herself to achieve success and to keep on reaching for the next goal.
Are divas born or are they created? Rita?
My sense would be that they're both. Some of us have received a wonderful genetic hand. We have wonderful skills. We have really easygoing personalities, and we find it a lot easier to succeed in the business world. Whereas for others, it takes a lot more work to do so. Kim highlights the importance of working very hard to achieve what you want to achieve and setting very clear goals for oneself and work towards getting them all the time. It's a continuous learning process that is required for people to move up the organizational hierarchy.
Kim, do you think a doormat can survive in a business environment for long?
Well, she can, but to climb the corporate ladder, I don't think being a doormat is enough. People are awfully grateful for doormats because you need sometimes, well, I don't, but perhaps people need somebody they can boss around or walk over it. It
depends on your personality.
It depends on the personality. Yeah. Some people get power from that, and other people are happy to serve in that way, to just, you know, be there to assist somebody else. But in terms of the corporate world as we know it, being a woman and getting to the top, being a doormat is not really going to get you there. But I think what's really important was the way the woman sees herself, and I know I've said this before, but I really like to step back to it, is think about how you talk to your, well, I don't know if you do it, probably not, Fenley, looking at you, but people talk to themselves, they look at themselves in the mirror and they say, oh, you're so fat, or your face is falling off, or, yeah. And I think, imagine you spoke to your friends like that. Imagine I said, oh, you're so fat. Nobody would have any friends, but we do this to ourselves the whole time. We allow ourselves to treat ourselves like doormat, and it was just that subtle mind shift saying, hold on, okay, maybe I'm a little bit overweight, but I'm still, I can see the inner goddess. And it was, step one is for people to recognize that that they have within. And it doesn't mean being most powerful, successful. Maybe being a really competent PA is as far as they want to climb up the corporate ladder, and that's okay. But it's as long as they're satisfied with that, what you were saying, how they measure their success, Rita, but just to find that inner goddess and think, whatever I want, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, don't let the world beat them up. They do enough of that themselves.
Yeah. It's basically being nice to yourself.
Yeah.
Well, Rita and Kim, we're going to talk to you just after the break. Of course, we're taking a short commercial break. When Women in Business returns, we continue our look at the obstacles and challenges women face in the corporate world. More with Kim Meredith and Rita Callaman after the break. Welcome back to Women in Business, where we're speaking to author of Work Diva, a practical and refreshing guide for women on how to climb the corporate ladder without selling your soul. Also with us from our bureau in Cape Town to add some more insight into today's workplace is industrial psychologist Rita Callaman. Ladies, once again, thank you. I'm going to start with you, Kim. Where does one begin in being a diva? Let's say you're finding her right now in the workplace and she is trying to climb the corporate ladder, or she's a student right now. Where does she begin?
Well, first of all, as I said, is just to look inside and correct your view of yourself. But then I think, like any career, no matter if you're a doctor or you're starting in a menial clerical position, is to take whatever opportunities are given to you and make the most of them. If you are a floor sweeper, but you're a really good floor sweeper, it's still going to stand you in good stead. If it comes to promotion time, who's going to be the supervisor, you're going to be noticed. So no matter what it is, no matter what opportunity, as small as it might seem, is to take it and make the most you can of it. And, you know, prove yourself. Don't expect don't feel entitled to progress. Don't feel that because you've been in the job for 2 years, that's good enough. In business particularly, I'm sure in most fields of life, it's earned, and being a woman in business is no exception. We've just got to work a little bit harder, as Rita was saying.
Rita, how does one identify the opportunities that are in front of them?
I think that in the first place, a woman should consistently believe in herself and look around for the opportunities. And I really want to go back to the question that you've asked Kim just now. I think it starts very early in a girl's career, where her parents believe in her and where they can say, look out, you are okay. And you can do things for yourself. You don't have to stand back for anybody. And where they support their daughters to really move on. Then when we get to the real situations where we're looking for the opportunities, it's often by looking at one's networks, trying to use every opportunity that is available, making contacts with people, trying to find out what exactly it is that one wants to do with your own life, and then looking out for any opportunity where one can get some practical experiences, where one can find an opportunity to learn. Sometimes it's necessary to just offer yourself and to say, I'm going to spend some time working for you for 2 or 3 months without a salary, but I want to learn. And then quite often what happens is that that particular employer would start seeing that you can add value to the organization, and they would possibly give you a chance. These days it's difficult to find a job, so people must make a real effort in order to find jobs for themselves and to look for opportunities. But it's mostly through networking, word of mouth. It's not waiting for advertisements in the newspapers. It means taking an active approach to find the right job that would give you the opportunity.
But what if she comes from a dysfunctional home where she does not have the support of the dad and mom? Rita?
That's a very difficult situation for any woman or anybody anyway to be in. I think in the first place, teachers, everybody around the woman should try and support her. But the most important issue is for the woman to be able to accept that support and to look for the support. If somebody believes that they can do something with their lives, go out there, look for support, look for help, find yourself a mentor, find yourself a support system that would help you to achieve what you want to achieve.
Rita just mentioned networking, Kim. Do you think it's overrated?
I come from a family that unfortunately was damaged, not by any behavior, but through circumstance. And I didn't have that support structure around me. And even within schools, you know, they were just very ordinary schools that I had to attend. And so I looked inside for a lot of the support. I didn't work very hard at school, but that all changed when I started working. I just suddenly found my groove, if I can use the colloquialism. So, but as soon as I got into the business environment was the first thing I learned, that people knew each other, that they could put other people in touch. And I think that was probably my first lesson after work hard. Don't feel entitled, just give it everything you've got. But it's also, it is who you know. And it doesn't have to be, you know, celebrities or very senior people. Just having a very broad network is important, and don't limit it to your social group or your particular sex or your religious affiliations. The wider you can get it, the more it's going to serve you. And even now, running my own businesses, I don't think I could do anything without a network.
Can a diva, once she gets to the top of her game, throw her toys out of the cot? Because there is a sense out there that will have accomplished, I am it, and I can be who I want and say what I like.
Well, that's sort of the ego run riot, but I think, you know, the subtitle of the book is How to Climb the Corporate Ladder Without Selling Your Soul, and I think if you're behaving like that, you've sold out. Literally, you've sold your soul.
But it's a very fine line one is straddling, where you're being positive and you want to accomplish, and once you've accomplished, you know, what do you do then?
I think think the measure is really how you treat other people, and it goes back to that old adage, you know, treat others as you'd be treated yourself. And no matter how important you are, no matter how famous, no matter how powerful, there's no excuse for treating the people around you badly. Sure, there are times when you have to discipline and take some pretty stern action, and if it's appropriate, but I don't think there's ever an excuse to treat other people badly. I just am very uncomfortable with it. And the powerful people I know in business, and there are some very powerful people, always treat other people with respect. And
yeah. But Rita, would you agree that to a certain extent when women are hardcore, they're more respected in a male environment?
Well, there's a lot more expected of them, and there's a fine line where it's very easy to step over the line. What we need to recognize is that everybody will at some stage or other become angry. We're all human, but the question is, how do we deal with our own anger? Are we expressing ourselves in an aggressive way, or are we trying to be assertive? And if we did anything that was not exactly as we think it should have been, to be able to go back and to say, I'm sorry. Perhaps I used strong words in this case. What I really meant was this. But to be transparent, to just be yourself, and try to be the person that you want to be at all times. I think that's very important anywhere in the world of world, in the world of work.
Kim, we know traditionally that women are homemakers, and that's how most women have been brought up. Do you find that they are torn between their careers and starting a family?
Women are, because the expectations that maybe their family have or societal groups have. I was blessed in, as I said, you know, sort of running amok when I was a child. So my father's expectation was that I would meet somebody fairly young, have a family. That wasn't what I wanted for my life. I think people bow to pressure of others' expectations, and that's part of that stepping back and having a look at yourself and thinking, what do you really want? And if you want a family and you want a job, it's okay. But just recognize that the two will place pressure on each other. So maybe at certain points you might have to give one priority over the other. But when your kids are grown up, you might decide, yeah, a full-time career is what I want. I decided, I just got sucked into business, I think, so having babies was never on my list of things to do. And now, of course, it's not really an option, but, well, I suppose I could adopt. But, you know, I just was so entranced by the business world that that's where my life led me.
Yeah. Just before we go, Rita, what are the do's and don'ts, do you think, of a work diva?
I think a work diva should at all times deliver the results. She should add value to the organization. She should make sure that she's in control of her own situation. She should also try to create a position for herself where she has some choices. Choices where she would be able to take care of her children if she chose to have children, where she has the freedom, or where she has the support system where she can take care of her children, either by employing somebody else to do so. But the most important issue for her is to commit herself to her career and to accept the responsibilities that goes with the career, and not to use any excuses. One of the problems that employers have with women is that when things are getting very tough, women tend to say, well, my children and my family need me, and therefore I'm going to opt out. A man can never say that. Women should not do that either. If you choose to become a career woman, then that is your choice, and you arrange your life accordingly.
Well, Kim, just before we go, what's the fastest way a diva can mess up her career? Just very briefly.
Don't deliver. Make promises, don't deliver, have an expectation rather than earning the promotions.